Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the City's Preservation Board, our regular meeting, and I'm going to call a roll to establish who's here. Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Killeen, are you here?
Here.
Alderman Vaccaro, welcome. Are you here?
Present, yes.
Commissioner Vines, are you here?
Here.
Okay, and I am here. Did I overlook anybody? Okay, I did not. Commissioners, has anybody looked at the minutes for March 25th?
I did. I move that we approve these minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, those are our minutes. Commissioners, take a look at the agenda. Does anybody need to recuse themselves on any of these issues? Does anybody wish to change the order in which these are presented? Hearing no such discussion, that will be our agenda. Let's start. Calling first agenda item A, 3671 to 81, Lindell.
Jan Cameron from the Cultural Resources Office. And this is an interesting project. This is the Masonic Temple, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, on Lindell Boulevard. And the proposal is to convert its use from its current vacant use, I guess, to apartments. My understanding is that the large ceremonial spaces will have other venues, but there will be a number of apartments constructed. This is very early in the design, so there is essentially one important element that you're seeing this evening. So here's the location. You can see that aside from being a city landmark, it's also in the Midtown National Register District, which is the slightly pink area. Okay. And I don't have a site plan, but this is the first floor, just to give you an idea of the current site. And this is the front elevation. Now, the proposal, because of the necessity for providing windows for apartments, does intend to construct new openings on all four elevations. On the front, however, it's extremely restrained. And if my friend, the pointer, will work. There we go. Okay. There are a couple of existing openings here which you can hardly see because of the setback of the building. They will be adding some 5 additional openings in this vicinity right here. And if you look at this photo, oh, that's a detail shot of where the openings are going to be constructed. But it's going to be almost impossible to see from any place along Lindell, which that shows. And then there are going to be additional openings, which include recessed balconies, where the balconies will actually be within the envelope of the building, but the openings will be somewhat larger. And this is a comparison shot with a rendering on the right. I don't know if you can see, there are a few new windows proposed in this location. This is a balcony. I have a better shot coming up. And then a lot of openings will be added to this. This is the North Spring side, and it is a street elevation. So if you compare the two, the existing facade is on the left and the rendering showing the new openings on the right. And the most openings will be on the rear elevation because there will be interior parking, and also some more balconies. So that's primarily going to be in this area and along of course, the base. And this is a detail of what those interior balconies will look like. This is the rendering. There are people here, if you can see them. And then there'll be an interior set railing. Now, the architect has worked to try to integrate these new openings within the existing pattern of the building's fenestration. So I threw these in just to show you how extremely visible this building is from everywhere. Okay. The staff is recommending that the board grant preliminary approval, subject to, of course, the usual stipulation that the staff works with the architect to complete the final drawings and any sort of material details.
Commissioners, On this side, are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, so this is a really old landmark designation, right?
It is.
And so
89, I think.
so the ordinance itself, did it have any standards in it?
Does not have standards. It adopts under our ordinance the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Okay.
Which allows punched openings on historic buildings on non-primary elevations.
So you believe that all the changes they want to make would be approved by the Secretary of the Interior?
Well, this is not going for tax credits. This is being funded in other ways.
Right, but you said the standards that apply are the Secretary of Interior standards.
Correct. But that's not the same as the interpretation of them by the National Park Service. But yeah, I would think that the Park Service would probably be okay with what's proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman, you want to ask your inaugural question of staff?
Well, the only question which I'll probably ask from whoever, if the alderman from that area has weighed in on this.
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, that would be my question,
Okay,
but I'll ask that.
great. Thank you very much. Okay, we have, looks like the owner. Owner. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name's Brian Hayden.
How would we find you again if we were looking for you? What is your address?
Oh, it's 106 West Church, Mascouda, Illinois, 62258.
Okay. You want to tell us to begin? Otherwise, we have questions for you.
No, I think you've done a great job summarizing the project. We're not asking for any tax abatement or tax credits or any other type of public financing. We've done a number of projects in the city of St. Louis, and we don't operate that way. We use conventional bank financing. The openings are important for us in order to be able to get light into the building, to be able to utilize the building and get the rents to where we need to be on a per square foot basis to be able to fund this without public funding. Without these type of openings, we'd be back to a publicly funded type project. I'll take any questions.
On this side?
It looks great. It's a great building. Are you the developer who did the executive building downtown, or the Millennium Center they call
Yes.
it? Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay, got it. So you're used to working in diverse buildings. Question: Where do you envision the entrance to the parking garage, the underground garage? Is it inside the building?
They're coming off the back of the building.
Okay. And do you have any idea about like square footage of the apartments, or how big are the units? Is it going to be a range of price points? Out of curiosity.
Linda, you want to come up with? I think so. Linda's my on-staff architect, so there are a range of sizes.
So we typically do studios all the way up to 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, so they can be anywhere from, let's say, maybe 800 square feet to could be a couple thousand square feet. So there's a lot of columns in the building, so we have to work around that, and the limitation of light is really going to determine that too. But we propose about 100 apartments with a mix of all of those.
Last question, then I'll pass it on to colleagues. Do you anticipate saving a lot of the interior details? I know that's not under our purview here, but I'm just out of curiosity.
We're not touching the lobby, so that'll stay. And on the 5th floor, which is technically the 10th floor, there is a very large 3-story assembly room that we're keeping, as well as another like auditorium. So we're trying to preserve as much as we can. All the existing corridors will be the existing corridors going into the apartments.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Killeen?
No question.
Commissioner Richardson?
So has Grand Center as a organization, are they supportive of the project?
We haven't spoken with anyone at this point in time. What we really want to do is get approval through this being the first process, because if we don't have approval here, we just can't do this as a non-publicly funded operation. At that point in time, it's a completely different project.
Are you guys the owner? Are you the owner now, or
I
are you
am.
under contract?
I'm the owner.
Okay.
Alderman, question?
Why, simple ones, yes. Not only the Grand Center, but have you talked to the alderman of the area?
No, we haven't spoken with anybody yet.
See, that's kind of where I would want to see is what the alderman, would say. I mean, in most other hearings, and I'm new to this, Usually, we would ask for a letter, the committee would ask for a letter from the aldermen of the area, because they're the ones that are going to get the most feedback or disapproval or approval. Who is the alderman for that area?
I don't even know.
Marlene Davis.
That's what I thought.
I believe he knows
I
that.
figured it was Marlene, but I kind of knew that, but I was hoping you would know that. Okay, well, that would be my only really thing. I would like to see what the alderman of the area feels about the project.
Yeah, Joe, and I completely understand that. One of the things that we don't want to do is go out, running all kinds of newspaper articles and running our mouth all over town about something we're going to do and then not have it come to fruition. We work very hard on the front side to make sure that we have a viable project before anybody gets to go around with bragging rights that whatever's going on is going on in St. Louis. And I think this board is the most important step to make sure that we have approval to be able to go in this direction. And once we have that approval, yeah, absolutely, we have to go talk to these other two organizations, including the alderman.
But, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I could be corrected, but if we approve this, does the alderman have the right to come back and say, gee, I'd like that denied, or can we change our opinion? I mean, it seems to me if we're asking for approval of something
This is the
before.
preliminary review. Its purpose is for us to tell the developer that this is the sort of concept that we would support. And it generally does not come back to us again after that preliminary review unless they change it.
Okay, and that's where my problem would come in. I would love to see,
We almost never hear from the alderman,
really?
really.
Well, I'll start sending them letters.
Oh, we send them now.
I know, but I'll actually send them.
That would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. That would be my one big problem. I certainly, being on the side of the aldermen, having to talk and work with neighborhood groups, I just, because I've run into this right of use or use of right thing that seems to upset people in our neighborhood when something starts to go in without our approval. But anyway, that's my only comment. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson, this looks like the great-great-grandfather of a Robinson building. I can see its influences in your work. Have you got questions for the developer or the architect?
Actually, I don't. The one thing, just speaking on the alderman's point, was typically this does go before the neighborhood association before coming to us, and so that definitely would be something that I would probably want to see.
Same way. I agree.
Any questions? Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, is there a motion? Commissioner Vines?
Sure, I will make a motion that the board grant preliminary approval of the proposed alterations with the stipulation the details and specs are submitted to the Cultural Resource Office for review and final plans and materials are approved by Cultural Resources.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Commissioner Vines?
Seeing as the developer has a proven track record of successfully rehabbing some, potentially challenging buildings, prominent buildings, and he's the outright owner of the property, not seeking any tax abatements. I know it's not our area, but that's checks a box for me personally. I think I don't see any real downside to seeing this long underused building brought back to useful life by a developer who has proven that he has a wherewithal to get it done.
Colleen, comment?
No comment.
Mr. Richardson, comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, so I think, Alderman, when we Yeah, we do want to see neighborhood support or aldermanic support when they're asking for like an exception or a variance, or their proposal doesn't comply with the standards per se, and they're, so they're coming to this board for some kind of variance. But this one, as staff said, that the landmark ordinance that applies just references the Secretary of Interior standards, and staff says what they're doing would comply with those. So there's no exception or anything like that being requested here. So I'm with Commissioner Vines that it should be approved.
Alderman comment?
Yeah, I just, my belief is that they should have at least gone to the neighborhood association, especially when you're gonna put in multiple family units into a building. I mean, the neighbors may
Actually,
want to know a lot.
on this one, I know a lot about neighborhood associations. I could not guess what the neighborhood association for this is.
Well, I would think the alderman might know it. I'm just saying why,
Yeah.
I
No,
won't support it just because of that reason, but,
The alderman I could name, the neighborhood association I could not.
no, but that would be my big issue. And I'm also gonna send something out to the different aldermen, and now I'm gonna we'll start knowing what the agenda is, and I will be sending and asking for letters from them.
Excellent.
But I don't,
Okay. Tony?
Yeah, I mean,
To fill in some openings, so that it looks more like.
fill in some, open, No,
Have you seen Commissioner Robinson's work? I'm surprised.
no, I think it's a good project. I would simply state that in the future, and I heard Commissioner Richardson down there, but I doubt that any project, even if it complied, that did not go before Lafayette Square's neighborhood association would be okay.
To Commissioner Richardson, or like in life?
Just so we're clear, I don't think that's not a legal requirement that someone goes to the neighborhood association. So I'm okay if they don't, like, because the law doesn't require that.
But beyond that, the project's good.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll be a no.
Okay, I'll do it one more time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No,
Opposed?
I'm
Ayes.
opposed.
The ayes have it. Agenda item B, Commissioners. For this, we reconstitute ourselves to hear an appeal. The quorum is still present, and we will ask both staff and witnesses to state their name, address, promise that they're going to tell the truth, and to submit any documentation they want in the record to Adonna down there on the end. She'll mark it as an exhibit, and that will constitute your case. Agenda item B, 3318 Lemp.
It's a preliminary review.
Oh, never mind. Let me start again.
Sorry.
It says appeal of denial.
Yeah, but it should have been, that's our error. It should.
Okay, everybody back down from DEFCON 1. Let us correct the agenda to note that this is in fact a preliminary review and not an appeal of a denial.
Oops, excuse us.
There'll be no swearing. In. Z. And we don't need a quorum, but we still have one. Agenda item B.
Okay, Jan Cameron, Cultural Resources. It is confusing because there was a permit issued on this. Since then, there have been revisions to it, and it is the revision that's the preliminary review.
Okay.
And you, those of you who were here last meeting, will recognize this project. It is the proposed construction of a single family here in the Benton Park neighborhood at 3318 Lemp, which we are looking at right now. It is part of a larger development that includes the rehabilitation of what's known as the workers' cottage, the little house on the left, which will be rehabilitated and have an addition attached to it. And there is another single-family house further to its left in the slide that was previously completed, also part of this project. And so not to take up too much of your time, but just to remind you about it, what's changed is there was originally a proposal for a two-family on this site, and therefore the side yards were much narrower than the current proposal, which is a single-family. Okay. So what you're seeing differently from last time is that because the staff and the board were concerned about the amount of brick on the two side elevations, because the wide side yards will make them street visible, the project has been widened slightly. So the top is what we saw last month, and the bottom is the new proposal. And in addition, the green thing, there has been a setback created to the rear of it to give a logical logical spot for the brick to stop on the side elevations. So there's a comparison, again, between what was originally proposed, which is much less wide, and then the new proposal. So the side yards are decreasing somewhat. You will still be able to see the side elevations. That's the already completed property, which has a similar construction where it actually extends back here, but in fact, because of the change in the massing, the brick was allowed to stop at that point. So they were kind of following in the same process here. And this is the new proposal for the south elevations. Keep in mind that the sided areas will be set back, 2 feet? 2 feet from the brick. So there will be a visual break there on both elevations. In addition, you might note that these windows have been redesigned at the request of the staff to make them more compatible with historic windows. Before they were small square windows. So given these alterations, the staff is supporting the revisions to the property. And the developer is here to talk about it.
Questions on this side for staff? Tony? That looked like I'm going to have a question in about 10 seconds face.
No.
Okay then. Questions on this side?
Yeah, it looks like we're still showing a lot of siding here. Benton Park standards allow that amount of visibility of siding.
They say the materials should be similar. So in interpreting that, it should be brick. But we have previously on some projects where there was a strong visual break allowed it to switch to siding to appear as sort of a frame addition to the original brick building.
Further questions on this side? Hearing none. Thank you, Jane. Okay, let's hear, in a much less formal setting, from... Tell us your name, sir.
Matthew Hardig, I'm with Rubicon.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me? I was ill-prepared last time I was here, and I'm sorry I wasted your time on that, but I have my visuals this time. So I know I was asked about brick cost, and I do have 3 proposals, and they range from an additional $39,000 to $47,000 to brick the building, which is why we are trying to get the obvious break into the design, because it'll kill the project to brick both sides all the way down, 2 stories worth.
Do you have those bids that we could see? You can do the lady down on the end.
Adana.
Thank you.
Have you had any contact with the neighborhood association or the alderman on the?
Not at this portion. We started originally with talking with them, which is how we came up with the elevations that we have, but not about this particular one.
reach out to them at all since we last saw you?
No, no. So the top page is a summation of the 3 bids.
I'm sorry. That's, I've got a pile of them.
Oh, there's,
They're all the same.
there's copies.
I broke the code.
I just read that. No, there seems to be a misplaced comma. Okay, further questions on this side? Questions on this side? Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
I want Mr. Clean to have this one.
What'd you just say?
I want Mr. Clean to do this one.
The Preservation Board deny preliminary approval of the new construction because it does not meet with the Benton Park historic standards.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
In that last applicant that we heard over by St. Louis U, we noted that they really weren't doing anything against the standards over there. So that's why we didn't need to talk to the neighborhood or hear from the alderman. And this one, I think we are. I hear what Jan's saying, and I respect her ruling on this, but this just shows an awful lot of siding to Lemp Avenue that's going to be there for the next 50 years. And I think it's important enough, and it strays far enough from our standards that the neighborhood and the alderman should at least be consulted on this, so, before we make a ruling here.
A discussion on this side?
Question. Can this be put on hold and give him the opportunity, or do we rule today and that's it?
This is just a preliminary review. He could come back again.
Okay, that's, yeah, I would, then I'm good with that, when we talk to the neighborhood.
Okay. Further discussion? Tony?
That's showing.
There's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Director Krasnov, if I call the next thing an appeal of a denial, would I be right or wrong?
You would be correct.
Okay. Everything that I said before about appeals of denials now holds. And this will be an appeal of denial. It's agenda item C, 405 North Euclid.
Andrea Gagan, I swear to tell the truth. And I submit into the record ordinance 64689, our enabling ordinance, ordinances 56768, and as amended by 69423 Central West End ordinances, and the PowerPoint and the agenda. This is 405 North Euclid Avenue. There's a new business up-down going into this location, and they have applied for signage. This is the location at the corner of Euclid and McPherson. This is just a view from of the front of it from the corner of McPherson and Euclid. This is the location of the proposed roof sign and a kind of mock-up of what that would look like. And this is a photo of previous Balaban's roof sign that was on there. There was also, Herbie's also had a sign in that location when they were in this location. Technically, roof signs under the ordinance are not permitted, but we feel that because of the precedence of there being signs there previously, and it is not being drilled into the roof. They actually just replaced the copper roof. It is actually been clipped on, so there's no damage to the roof itself. And I wanted to enter into the record a letter from the Central West End Association Planning and Development Committee, Jim Dwyer, who actually, oh wait, I'll just explain. Okay, the other signs are located at the end of the addition. This is what the installation details of this are. They're supposed to be mounted between the mullions. But they do project out a few inches from the face of those mullions. Sorry. This is a mock-up of those signs. As you can see, it shows the windows blocked. I'm not sure that that's actually the case at this end of the building, but on this end of the building, apparently they have been enclosed from the interior, and the windows painted black. And it's these windows, and there's a few apparently on the front elevation. So, oops, back here. So now enter into the record the letter from Jim Dwyer. Basically, they are in support of the roof sign and not in support of the end signs, which obstruct the windows. And they are not in favor of the blocking of the windows either, which the interior blocking is not really technically under our purview, but the painting, because they painted the windows, that sort of is. And Dan can speak to that. And also a letter from Alderwoman Heather Navarro, basically saying the same thing, that she's in support of the roof sign, but not of the end.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Anything else? Questions on this side?
Oh, can you ask if she wants to introduce this as an
And basically,
Okay.
these are neon signs with a clear face on them.
When you introduced ordinance 6468 squiggle, squiggle, did you mean as amended by ordinance 64925?
Yes, I did.
Okay. That is not a 9. Questions on this
I
side?
have one question. Do you think would they be open to putting roof signs on that location, on the ends?
That's possible. I haven't discussed it with the sign company, but Dan might be able to talk about that more.
Okay.
Do you know the use of the building?
I believe it's like an arcade
That would,
type of,
like a neon-y kind of thing?
yeah. I really don't, I don't know too much about Uptown, but
Okay.
Question, so the end signs, the issue with those is under, it's F5, you're saying that those are projecting signs that obstruct windows?
windows,
Is that?
yeah.
Okay. And can you go back to your photo of the front of it?
Yeah.
Is there one more? One more? Well, I thought there was one that shows, like, right now, don't the windows have this Central West End kind of,
Yeah, they had like a
That
kind of
stuff.
a
So-
signage kind of thing in them.
so is that allowed?
I don't think we ever approved those.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out the black painted window, it's because it's painted. Could they do that filmy stuff that you put on windows?
I'll let Dan address that.
Yes, as long as you tell us your name and you promise to tell the truth.
Always tell the truth. And I always tell my name. I'm Dan Krasnoff, Cultural Resources Director, and I swear to tell the truth. So, to answer the question, this one presents some interesting kind of nuances to how our ordinances work. So, for example, we commonly tell people we don't evaluate interior alterations to buildings. We only deal with exterior alterations. But sometimes an interior alteration to a building can happen that has such a significant impact on the exterior appearance of the building that I would argue the sort of general language at the front of our ordinances about maintaining the historic character of the building or the neighborhood comes into play, and that can alter, and the changes on the inside can alter what happens on the outside. So I believe the outside of the north end, see, these are left over from when Herbie's was there. And certainly Herbie's didn't get a permit from us to put those in. And if no one complained and we didn't know about it and an inspector didn't catch them for it, they've been up there for quite some time. What's happened now, and I'm sorry we don't have a better picture of this, but at the north end, the applicant got a permit for interior alterations, and they drywalled in they drywalled in these windows here on the end, and they drywalled in the four of those 5 windows on the north end of the Euclid facade. So they're dark. They don't have any transparency anymore. And then they were painted black, is my understanding. So, what started off as windows that were transparent, and my understanding is, going back to at least Herbie's and probably even Balaban's, the north end of this was used for a part of the kitchen. So it's always had either blinds on them or some opaque treatment behind the window, or in this case it looks like, I'm not sure if that's in front of the window or behind in the picture we're looking at, but they've always been obscured because there was sort of, not exciting service and kitchen work going on at that corner. My understanding, and we have an applicant here who can explain a little more of this in detail, is when the current tenant leased the property, they did additional construction. And they have permits. They're plastered on the door. I've seen them myself. But those permits probably we should have been made aware of them, because by drywalling behind those windows, you're kind of permanently changing, in a significant way, the appearance of the building. So what the applicant did was they got a permit for the drywall, and they put it up. And I can't criticize someone for applying for a permit and getting a permit. If the city issues you a permit, you have one. And the fact is, these have not been transparent windows for some time, as you can see from this picture, and we even have earlier pictures from Street View that show that when Balaban's was still there, they had covered up these windows as well. So I think the concept of these windows being covered up is not necessarily such a bad thing. And as I said, we didn't receive any complaints about Herbie's doing this to those windows in our records. So what I have told the applicant is, I still think that painting those windows black is inappropriate as a treatment once the drywall went up. And what I think we have an agreement with the applicant to do is the following things: to seek approval for the roof sign in the middle, because I think there's a consensus that that's a legitimate place to put a sign, and there aren't a lot of great places to put a sign on this building, quite honestly. They have agreed, and I think they're going to testify to this, to not put the sign up as submitted on the ends. And Randy, to your point, In an email, I suggested maybe a solution here was a roof sign on either end that's properly scaled to those ends, and we've talked about that internally as staff. And I think that could well be a solution if they want and need more signs. And then we get to the matter of the black, and you'll see this in the recommendation. So the staff feels very strongly that where there are glazed windows now that are transparent, they should stay transparent, and there shouldn't be construction that permanently alters the external appearance of this building by covering up windows on the inside. It's kind of using the technicality or the reality that we only do exterior alterations. But if you make interior alterations that are so dramatic in changing the physical appearance of the building, I think that does affect the exterior appearance. And I do think we have the authority to regulate that. Additionally, I would like to work with the applicant on a mutually agreeable solution to the windows at the end. I think they're open to that. So I think we had some really good dialogue today about moving forward with this project. I'll say some personal things now. I'm a Central West End resident. I think this is kind of a neat project, actually. I know there are Central West Enders who may disagree with me, but I think this project would give some youthful energy to the neighborhood. And so I'm excited to have it in the community. We just need to work out some of these exterior alterations so that we're maintaining the balance between letting a new business come in and have their have their signs and what they need to be able to operate, but also making sure we're respecting the character of these buildings that were here before we all got here and are going to be here long after we're no longer here, I hope. And with that, I'll take any questions.
So the recommendation is to approve the roof sign as an
Yes.
exception for
Yes.
the reasons of the otherwise impossible place to find a place to put a sign.
And the precedent.
Okay. And to deny the end wall signs and to deny painting the windows black.
Right. And to also state for the record that the windows that are unpainted now should stay unpainted and should remain transparent.
I don't know that that's part of this appeal. I mean, wouldn't they next have to come back for a preliminary review of what they actually plan to do?
I suppose you make a good point there.
Or could we make that a condition on the approval of their rooftop sign?
I think that is something you could also do. And I would encourage, that's what the staff is asking for. I know the applicant has thoughts on all this, and, I want them to have their opportunity to address the board. So I encourage the board to listen to them and consider their needs, and what the staff would like to see happen here. And I'd like this to move forward in a cooperative way between us working with the applicant.
Can they approve of the application, or would they have to come back and fill out an application knowing that they're going to get the sign?
I would think that.
Okay, that's what I was.
I don't know that we can do all the things that you suggest, but we will discuss it here
Okay.
after we hear from them. Now, they have written their names in the same transparent ink that you want in their windows, so I don't actually know who to call.
I apologize.
Come on up.
By process of elimination, I figure he's your guy.
Hello, my name's Joey Akers.
I had no idea why Ogilvy was here, so. Okay, tell us your name
My name is Joey Akers.
and your address.
I live at 3201 Walter Avenue in Maplewood.
Okay, and is your testimony going to be the truth?
Absolutely.
Let's try to untangle this.
Okay. Where do you start?
Roof sign, what do you want to do?
Roof sign. So, first, let me start by kind of framing this a little bit. I am the general manager of it. We have someone who we subcontracted to do our signage, so I'm kind of intermediary right now, so I don't have all the information, but I am up to date on as much as I can be, and I did have conversations with Dan today trying to come to an agreement. So, like he said, what I would like to get accomplished today is find some common ground on the sign above the front door. It appears the other signs on the end need to be reworked or redesigned or just, scrapped entirely and reimagined. So that's what our hope is. We definitely worked with the neighborhood groups on kind of coming close to the ballot band signage, trying to find something that was comparable that would work there. We definitely worked hard on designing something that would not penetrate the new copper roof, that would be sensitive to that as well. So really what's key for me right now is the signage above the front door, and then everything else is kind of secondary. So that's kind of where I would start with the signage conversation.
Well, it's sort of good that we have the manager here.
Yeah.
Can you operate the place with the windows being clear?
Yeah, we have a plan for some interior vinyl for the other end cap. That was something that we had planned since I'd actually met with Andrea a long time ago, and I was basically given free rein to paint or do wraps on the interior of the building, and that the exterior of the building was for other decision makers to be involved with it as well. So we could talk about the north end cap as well with the painting that happened there too. But we have some designs for just the end caps. The rest of the windows we want to leave clear and open, and we actually, as you've heard, we're an arcade bar and restaurant. We don't want to back up arcade games to those windows because we want people to see in and see the full depth of our business and have a good sight line there. So we plan on having pretty much everything from what was currently obstructed under Herbie's or ballot bands, all the way to the other end. I believe the first 4 or 5 of those would have some interior vinyl, like transparent, maybe semi-opaque, with whatever the word is. You can kind of see through, but kind of not. That was our plan for that end cap.
I'd be much more sympathetic if you brought the Big Boy statue back, with Big Boy holding a giant token in his hand.
We're going to, and to the conversation earlier about neons, we do have a lot of custom neons inside the building. That's very much of our 80s and 90s nostalgic feel is the neon. So that's why we use signage like that too. So it very much ties into our branding, to our image, to what we're going for as well. So.
Okay, commissioners on this side, questions? Commissioners on this side, questions?
No.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to introduce for the record for your case?
I have nothing at this time, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
Move that the Preservation Board grant an exception to the standards for the rooftop sign, deny the proposed wall signs, and deny painting the windows black.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
The only thing that I'd mention is regarding what Director Krasnoff said. So there was a permit issued for interior drywall, which then put us in a position of having windows that needed to be blocked. So I think if we can in some way include some sort of wording so that that doesn't happen again, because essentially it could happen again, where then you do need some blockage of windows, which is what we are trying to avoid here.
Well, I think I agree with Director Krasnoff that if they do that, it will be in violation of the Historic District Ordinance, and they'll be before us having to take it out. Because my question about the filmy stuff was, I believe that we do have the ability to regulate stuff like that because it does change the character of the way the exterior looks, even though it's in the interior. So if they come back with, as Director Krasnoff said, they drywall some additional windows, I would think they could be back before us for violating the code and having to rip it off. So I don't think we need to add it as a condition, after all, to this motion.
That sounded good, but I respectfully disagree because it's been done, and we are not asking that it be torn out.
You want to respond? We do not have to have responses. This could go on forever.
And I don't want to amend my motion.
Tony, do I need to translate that?
Nope.
Okay then. Commissioners, we have a motion on the floor. It has been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Vines, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Vaquero, do you vote yes or no?
I'm going to pass for a minute.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Alderman Vaquero, do you vote yes or no?
I'm going to go with no.
Commissioners, we have 3 yeses and 2 nos. The ayes have it. Commissioners, the decision to transmit the landmark designation to Planning Commission and Board of Public Service has been deferred at this time. We usually get a director's report at this moment, and unless there's any objection, we'll have it now. Director Krasnoff, you have 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
You'll have it in a moment. I need to.
No, I mean to finish.
Okay.
Second.
You know, you all asked me to come and give a report from this stuff, and now you tell me you want it to be very brief.
We did, and we see you resisting by not putting it on the agenda.
That's not the case. Oh, there it is on the desktop. Okay. There we go. Okay, I can say this will be a very brief director's report, so I think I can comply. Okay, I'll start off by talking about preliminary items that were removed from today's agenda, at least ones that were removed more than 24 business day hours ago. You had an agenda item at 2904 Wisconsin to construct a single-family home in the Benton Park neighborhood and the Benton Park district. The applicant has deferred because they want more time to consult with the neighborhood and the political leadership. You have had this item deferred at least a couple times so far, I believe. It's signs for MAC Properties in the Central West End on their various rental buildings. That has been permanently withdrawn by the applicant. They did not find that they had much neighborhood support, and they've decided to abandon that effort for the time being at least. So next I'd like to talk about some ongoing activity. These are projects that you all have reviewed over the last year or two that are now starting to come to fruition. And so I thought I would let us all have a chance to take a look and see what came of it. So in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood at 4325 to 29 Swan, there was a proposal to demolish 3 shotgun houses that were contributing buildings to the National Register District. These 3 right there on the left. And instead replace them with townhomes, the design of which you see there on the right. The board granted that approval. The applicants submitted some pretty substantial evidence that the buildings were in pretty bad disrepair. And this is what's going up there now. I think now that you've seen that picture, I'll go back one. I think the picture on the rendering on the right is pretty close to what we're seeing come to fruition there. Attached buildings are relatively rare in Forest Park Southeast, but I will say that I think the row is nicely designed in terms of its relation to the adjacent structure that you see on the right. And it also includes the rehabilitation of a little shotgun house, a little flounder house that I don't have a picture of, but that's to the far left of the picture here. So that is nearly done with construction. And I think what the board was shown and what is coming to fruition there are pretty close. The next project, I'm sorry that this picture is kind of light, but this is 4220 Botanical in the Shaw neighborhood in the Shaw Local Historic District. This was new construction on a vacant lot. You can see I don't actually have a slide of the original design. I will say I think the building is pretty close to the design shown to the board. One thing that is a little hard to see here is that the facade behind the brick, so it's got a brick front, and then it's got that design element that a lot of developers really like to do, which is go back a distance and then use cementatious siding typically these days. And that's what's been done here. The hope was that that large tree on the left would help to screen this, but the large tree is gone. So now the building is pretty exposed. We actually received a complaint from a neighbor about that fact of it, and really there's nothing that can be done about it at this point, but we were afraid that they might take out the tree, and they did, and that's the outcome. I'm not sure I'd say this was a super successful project in terms of the impact on the neighborhood. On the other hand, Shaw is highly intact, so I don't think this is creating a really strong negative impact either, because again, Shaw is one of our historic districts that is almost entirely intact, and therefore what you're getting here is a street that's 90% historic, and it's got this one anomaly in it. Yes?
Who was the developer?
Orlando Askins? Yes.
Or that he would not take the tree down.
So the final project I wanted to show you is a north side project, which we don't see too many of, sadly. This is at 4064 Maffitt in the Ville Local Historic District. You can see this was presented to the Preservation Board in June of 2018. There is a vacant lot here, and what was shown to the board was this design below. This is for a church. The quality of the original design that we were shown was rough. I would say very rough. Our goal...
It was very tough.
It was, yes, we affectionately call it the Tough Shed Church. Our goal is to try to work with the applicants to try to help them achieve their goals. And in the Ville, it is a particular challenge where resources are so limited and property value is as low as it is to get perhaps the quality of projects we'd like to see that we get in some of our other historic districts. However, I will say to the developer's credit here, to the congregation's credit, because they own the two buildings at the corner that you see there, they worked with us pretty well, and they expended more funds than they intended to expend originally, and this is the result. So you can see the building in the context of going west. So the cross street here is Sarah Street. So once you go one lot past this building, you're no longer in the local historic district. The building has kind of a gray-brown brick that matches its neighbor very, very well. And I think the impact on the streetscape here is not bad. I would love to see more investment in the Ville, but I was happy that we were able to help the applicant achieve their building and do it in a way that it, particularly if you're looking at it looking east, the picture on the top, I think it just kind of blends in and doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, which was our fear when we originally received the original proposal. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Questions for the director? Thank you, Director. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Without objection, we stand adjourned. Commissioner